Now that it's 2025, it seems like a lot of people are getting into Marvel Champions, and I wanted to create a bit of a buyer's guide. Now, I don't think this is like the strict narrow path you have to follow when buying into this game, but I am going to give several different examples or scenarios, or maybe different points you can jump in for a buyer's guide, because I know a lot of people came in with the X-Men wave and joined the game. Then we have some people that joined way back when. We have some people that joined way back when and then stopped buying games and starting to get back into it now. So I wanted to try to cover all those different points. We're going to go through. This is just my opinion of how I would approach it with everything I know now. And just how I would approach buying the game moving forward. Hopefully this video helps you out. If it does, do me a huge favor. Make sure to hit the like button, subscribe, turn on notifications down below. And if you have additional suggestions, put it down in the comments. Let's go check out some of the expansions. Now, really quick before we dive into all of this, if you want to support this channel and support what we do here, do me a huge favor and go over to patreon.com/D20woodworking. You can set up a free account to read the blog posts that are there. But past that, there are different tiers that you set up for ad-free viewing, so you can watch a video like this one ad-free. There's polls, there's different updates, a bunch of different things there that you can find on Patreon. Or if you'd rather become a member here on YouTube, you can do that as well, starting at 99 cents. So I guess number one thing though is for the buyer's guide, you need the core box, right? Like, so there is no other core box that's out there as of right now. There's speculation that there might be in the future, but as of the beginning of 2025, there is no second core box. So in order to play Marvel Champions, you need this box. And honestly, it's a pretty good box to just start with and play a few rounds of, right? You have a bunch of different heroes in here with Spider-Man. You have Captain Marvel. Sorry, I always say America. Captain Marvel. You have She-Hulk, which isn't bad. Iron Man, which is really good, but kind of tricky. And then you have Black Panther, who's also not too bad either. Now, we're getting a new wave of heroes in the beginning of 2025 with the Shield wave, which may help some of these heroes in this box. We don't know. There's just a lot of speculation right now. So the other thing I want to point out, though, is there's a lot of great basic cards in here that you're going to want for future decks. Mockingbird is a phenomenal ally in the beginning of the game. Nick Fury is still used to this day, like a ton. An incredibly strong card. Your doubles are still used as resources. Avengers Mansion is still a good card. Helicarrier is still a pretty good card. And then some of these aggression cards aren't too bad, like Combat Training. Maria Hill Leadership card is absolutely phenomenal. I kind of forgot Hawkeye was in the core box. For some reason, I didn't think so, but whatever. And then Protection was kind of weak in the beginning, but that's a whole nother, discussion video moving forward. So anyway, there's good cards in there. And then you have your normal villains of Rhino is not a just like a warm-up villain, right? Rhino can actually be tough, especially in true solo. But even not in true solo, even in regular games, like he's not overly hard, but he's not like a throwaway villain that does absolutely nothing. Like he can be a little tough, especially on expert. So don't feel like because there's 5 heroes and 3 villains in this box, don't feel like there's really 2 villains, because like this is like an intro villain. It's not really an intro villain. It's a hard villain. It can be a hard villain to play in Marvel Champions. Past that, we have Claw, who I still use to this day to test out pre-con decks. And then finally, we have Ultron, who's actually a really strong villain in general. I still think enjoyed a lot. Just a quick note with Ultron. Ultron's gonna be one of the first times you learn in this game that you have to closely read all the text boxes, because these change. Like all 3 of these situations are different in the text box. So I guess to cover it really fast, this one's a response, so it's after Ultron attacks you. This is an interrupt, so this is before he attacks you, right? And this is like kind of like just attacking you in general, right? It's not an interrupter, it's not force afterwards. So it's just important to read those cards because they act 3 completely different ways. So now that you have the core box, there's kind of, in my opinion, 2 main directions you can well, maybe 3 main directions you can go from here. The first one is with a cycle that you really enjoy, right? So if you're huge into the X-Men, and I know a lot of people came into this game because of the X-Men, you can follow the X-Men release cycle, and we'll get on about that in a second. Then you could follow in release order, which generally speaking you can do, but you might want to skip 1 or 2 things, and we'll get into that. And then finally, there's just like chasing certain cards, right? You just want certain packs that have really strong cards because you don't necessarily care about the hero you're playing. You care more about the villains you're playing against. So let's first get into complete hero kind of release cycles. A lot of people came in during the Mutant Genesis X-Men wave to this game, and it makes sense. The X-Men are incredibly popular. It was a really good starting point for the game, and there's technically 3 cycles of it, right? There's Mutant Genesis with the Psylocke here, Cyclops, Phoenix, Mojo, which you can kind of skip right away, Wolverine, Storm, Gambit, Rogue as your hero packs. Then it went to Next Evolution, which was the X-Force, which leads you into Psylocke, Angel, X-23, and Deadpool hero packs, and then goes back to the X-Men with Age of Apocalypse and Iceman, Jubilee, Nightcrawler, and Magneto hero packs. Now, really quick with this, this is a perfect example of when you buy cycles, buy the whole cycle. And I know that sounds like natural and intuitive, but it's kind of not. So sometimes what people will do is they'll buy, like, let's just say the Sinister Motives cycle box, right? Because they want that box for whatever reason, but they won't get any of the hero packs in that cycle. Instead, they'll get like Cyclops because they really like Cyclops. And then they'll get, I don't know, choose a random one, Thor, because they really like Thor. And this is definitely a strategy you can do. The problem with it, though, is that the deck construction part of this game, which is one of the largest parts of the game because you construct your deck before you actually play, and then you will use that constructed deck. So it's not like a deck builder that you build a deck as you play. Think of Marvel Legendary. Deck construction happens beforehand. You're playing with that deck. What makes a lot of these decks stronger are the cards that come out in subsequent releases after the main core box, or I'm sorry, the expansion box. What do I mean by that? So if you buy the Mutant Genesis box, right, you're going to get Shadowcat and you're going to get Colossus as heroes. And you get a bunch of villains too, and it's really worth getting these boxes for the villains. Okay, Shadowcat and Colossus on themselves aren't bad, but you're going to want eventually other cards that are in the rest of the X-Men hero packs as, you know, different hero cards or different aspect cards to use to build your deck. Each hero gets stronger if you basically set collect everything. Now, there are certain cards within the X-Men cycle that are incredibly strong. So, for example, Professor X, very strong card. X-Jet, very strong card. You're going to want those cards. Luckily, that comes kind of in that core box already, so you don't have to worry about it as much. X-Mansion's also it can be a pretty strong card as well. Now, let's say you get, just hypothetically, Cyclops. So getting Cyclops, you could look into Danger Room Training, which is a leadership upgrade. I can't remember if this is printed in any other box, but let's just assume it's not printed anywhere else. The only way you'd be able to get this card is through Cyclops, and it's a good card to get, right? So because you attach it to an X-Men ally, 1 training upgrade, and that X-Men ally gets +1 thwart, +1 attack, +1 hit point, which if you're doing a leadership ally build is really strong and really good. Angel is pretty good. Utopia is a really good support. So Angel, basic allies, a 3/1/2/3 stat line, and he really costs 2 if you're playing as a mutant or an X-Men. So a 1/2/3 stat line is really good. 1 thwart, 2 attack, 3 life. Utopia is a good card, right? So there's these different good cards that you would get only if you get these individual hero packs. So you can continue to make your X-Men deck or your X-Men decks in general stronger by getting more packs. So if you buy into a wave, buy the whole wave or the whole cycle, whatever you want to call it. Now, X-Men's a little bit weird because it's 3 cycles long, but it's really like 2.5. It's kind of strange, or really 2, I guess. So the reason being is because the cards in Mutant Genesis will do a lot of X-Men cards and a few mutant cards. The cards in Next Evolution, though, are all X-Force cards. And a lot of the upgrades that you will get, well, it's introduced player side schemes, which is a whole nother thing to get into, but we're not going to worry about that right now. But a lot of the cards that are in this cycle, for, let's just say, Psylocke. Does Psylocke have some interesting ones? So Psylocke will have certain cards like Cypher, right? Where Cypher is an 2 costs, 1/1/2 stat line ally, X-Force ally. So if you want to do a build with a bunch of X-Force allies, you could do that. But there's not a lot of X-Men cards in here. There's not a lot of X-Force supports in general, which is kind of weird to think about, but there's just not a ton of them. They didn't really do a lot for it. Then in Age of Apocalypse, they changed things up a little bit where there's mostly X-Men stuff, but there's also a few X-Force stuff as well. So for example, advanced suit, which you can attach as an upgrade, attaches to an X-Force or X-Men ally, right? So the the first two boxes, right, with Next Evolution and what is it, Mutant Genesis, don't really work super well together, but Age of Apocalypse works well with either of them. Probably more so with Mutant Genesis, but still works with either of them. So it's a very weird cycle in this regard, that, you know, if you're getting the X-Men stuff, I would get Mutant Genesis and then Age of Apocalypse and then Next Evolution. Or if you're getting X-Force stuff, because let's just say you really like Psylocke, or X-23 is a phenomenal hero, you could get Next Evolution, then Age of Apocalypse, and then I would get Mutant Genesis, right? I know that's like kind of weird way to approach things, but that's just how I would do it personally. And that kind of covers you on this. And again, in general, when you're buying a whole cycle, just wait for sales, right? Just wait for whatever the sale is. So if you're buying Mutant Genesis, get Mutant Genesis. You don't necessarily have to buy Cyclops and then Phoenix and then Wolverine. Like, you don't have to do that. You could buy Phoenix and then Storm and then Gambit and then Wolverine, then Rogue, and whatever else in whatever order. I always like to try to save money, so just try to buy them when they're on sale, but buy the packs first in this cycle versus the packs in like Next Evolution, right? Don't jump over to buy Psylocke all of a sudden, like, unless you really just want to play Psylocke and her cards. It probably won't work out super well for you. Like, it'll just be tougher than it has to be. The other thing I'll mention with this cycle is Mojo Mania is a pretty decent scenario pack. A lot of people like Mojo. I don't particularly, but I really like Spiral and Magog, the other two. So there's 3 villain scenarios in here with Magog and then Spiral and then Mojo. This is one of the better scenario packs you can buy, but I wouldn't worry about scenario packs yet. The reason being is because you're going to have the 3 villains in the core box, and Mutant Genesis is going to get you another 5 villains. And if you get Next Evolution, it's another 5 villains. And if you get Age of Apocalypse, another 5. So you're up to 18 villains already, where most of the game's design is kind of on the hero side anyway. So you're going to be more interested in what you can do with heroes versus like really being nitpicky about villains. So I wouldn't really worry about that too much yet. So now that we kind of went over that, you could do the same exact principle with the Spider-Man wave, or the Web Warrior wave, right? Get Sinister Motives box, and then Nova and Ironheart don't really fit in that cycle, but Spider-Ham and Spider does. So you can get those hero packs afterward, and that will get you kind of the rest of the Spider wave. And then they do things to help out Spider-Woman and Spider-Man as well, which you can get into later in the game. But let's just say you wanted Web Warrior stuff. That's kind of what you would focus on right there. So let's say the next thing you want to do is go in order, which sounds simple, but might be a little tricky. Now, after you got the core box, there's a couple ways to approach this, because the things that came out after the core box was the first cycle with the Green Goblin scenario pack, Captain America, Miss Marvel, Wrecking Crew, Thor, Black Widow, Doctor Strange, Hulk, and then the next big scenario box. Now, what's interesting about this first scenario is that a lot of this stuff is Avenger based, right? So if we look into the core box right now and we look at the different heroes, we have Spider-Man, who is an Avenger, but not a Web Warrior. That's a whole big thing later on. Captain Marvel is an Avenger. We have She-Hulk, who's an Avenger. We have Iron Man, who's an Avenger, and then we have Black Panther, who's also an Avenger. So you could make Avenger-based decks. And if that's something that you're really into, then I would look into getting Captain America. You can skip Miss Marvel for now, but we'll get into that later. And then get into Thor and Black Widow and Doctor Strange and Hulk. And then maybe even just kind of skipping over to get Ant-Man and Wasp because, well, and Quicksilver and Scarlet Witch, because that's more Avenger-based stuff that you could do, and you're still kind of going in order. The one thing I will note too is that you can probably skip Green Goblin and the Wrecking Crew in the beginning. I can already hear people yelling at me. Green Goblin is a phenomenal scenario pack, but again, I think personally, hero design is what's going to draw a lot more people in the beginning. So focus more on getting those hero packs if you can, and then worry about the scenario packs. If you're going to get scenario pack, Green Goblin is still my personal favorite. I think it's the best one they've ever done. So if you find it for a good price, get it. Wrecking Crew is not that great, so don't worry about it as much. It's one of the last things most people get, but I've also seen it go on sale for like $4 or $5. So if you see it for that, like, absolutely get it. Miss Marvel's the one weird hero pack in here because she's not an Avenger. She's a champion Inhuman, and her cards are actually not too bad in her deck. Like Nova protection aspect. Ally is pretty good. Tackle's a not a bad card. Energy barrier is pretty good. Really helps out like what's his face, Iron Man. Lockjaw is a really good ally. Endurance is a really good card to get. So the thing is, like, there's good cards in here that are worth getting, uh, but it's kind of weird if you're going for that Avenger build. So it depends on how you want to approach things. So after you get those, the other way you can do it is you could say, hey, D20, I got a couple heroes I like, right? But like I'm skipping Strange or whatever because I don't like him because he's whatever. The other thing you can do is jump into the Rise of Red Skull box. And the reason being is because this box in particular has a lot of good villains in it, right? So Crossbones, good villain. Um, Absorb Man's a little bit on the easy side, but like it's nice to kind of get your confidence built up. Taskmaster a little bit easy, but can have a few tricky spots if you're not careful. Zola is a hard villain, and Red Skull is a hard villain as well. So it's got good villains in the box. And then the player cards, you get Hawkeye, uh, who is also an Avenger, so you can get some more Avenger stuff. Also comes with Team Training, which is a really good card. And then Avengers Tower comes here that early on. I didn't really remember that, but that's a good one. And then you get Spider Woman, who's actually a really good hero to use, and there's some good cards in here as well. So that's the route you can go, and then again, just keep buying in order, right? Ant-Man, Wasp, Quicksilver, and Scarlet Witch. Now, the Once and Future Kang scenario pack, the one quick note I'll make about that is that it's a very good scenario for multiplayer. It's a very long scenario for multiplayer. In solo, it's not as good of a scenario. I'm not a big fan of scenario. I don't hate it or anything. Because I play so much solo, it's not as good to me as anything else. So, okay, you're buying things in order, right? And the next thing that you see is the Galaxy's Most Wanted. Skip it. Just skip it for now. I promise you, just skip it for now. We'll get into that in a second, because what you probably want to do is Mad Titan Shadow, which has more Avenger stuff in it as well, right? So War Machine and Valkyrie and Vision are all Avengers as well. Some of them have cards that you can use for your Avenger deck because Captain Marvel or Black Panther ally or Avenger ally, so you could do some fun things in there. You can also have Valkyrie, who is the GOAT, one of the strongest heroes in my opinion in this game once you learn how to play her. She's got some interesting cards in here. It also has some Asgard cards with Godlike Stamina, which are really good cards for her and Thor. And then we have Vision, who's a really good hero as well. And he's got Flow Like Water, which is one of my favorite protection upgrades. But anyway, it's got good cards in it as well. The whole reboot sequence, yeah, it's really good stuff. But anyway, it's more Avenger type stuff. I would skip over Nebula because Nebula is really a part of the Guardian wave, and they should have just put her in there, and they didn't for whatever reason. But whatever, COVID was a crazy time. So they have all that. And then we get into the Spider Wave, which you can buy that in order if you want. And then it gets into the X-Men Wave. So you can kind of see how that flows. After that's all done is when I would look back at the Guardians Wave. And the reason being is the Guardian Wave is very self-contained. Okay. So if you just get the expansion box for the Guardians Wave, Rocket and Groot aren't going to be very good. They'll be all right, and you'll probably enjoy them. I love Rocket and Groot. I think they're really fun heroes. But there are a lot of cards that come out in this cycle that you need, that really make it worth it, right? So Star-Lord is an interesting hero, but he's really tough to kind of run. But I think this is when you first get Nowhere. Well, you might get it before, but you get the Nowhere. Now I have to say it because I can't remember off the top of my head. Nowhere is one of the stronger supports that you can get as a Guardian card, so it's really, really good card to get. Now I gotta double check really fast. Yeah, so you don't have Nowhere yet. So Nowhere's really good with Star-Lord. It's a card that you're gonna want to get if you're running Guardian decks. And then with Gamora, you get the Drax ally, who's a really strong ally to have. So you definitely want that. Also, God Slayer aggression card is a really, really good card. So you're going to want to get that. Then Drax himself has some interesting protection cards. Drax also, in my opinion, is the best pre-con deck in the game. Just FYI, some people agree, some people disagree. Gamora is a really good basic ally that you're going to want for Guardians. And then finally, you have Venom, who's like a weird Guardian, but he is a Guardian. Making an entrance, though, is a really strong card for the Guardian set. And I guess that's really it. Does Nebula have it? I can't remember if Nebula has anything that's super interesting that I like. She has another copy of Nowhere if you really want it. But yeah, you're going to want those. And Star-Lord has a bunch of leadership cards for Guardians that are actually pretty interesting and good. Like Blaze of Glory is a bonkers good card. I think it's only available in his deck, and he's got different upgrades like Laser Blaster and all that fun stuff. So anyway, he's got good cards. And I know a lot of people don't like Star-Lord, but anyway, Guardian set becomes better when you buy all the Guardian things. So if you're just like picking up just Star-Lord, it's not bad, but he needs some of the other cards, especially the basic Guardian allies that are going to help him out. So that's the only reason I say kind of put Guardians Most Wanted off to the side. Now the other thing is the villains, they're not great in this box. They're really frustrating for a new player. Drang isn't bad, right? Brotherhood bad dude, that's fine. Collector 1 is one of the worst scenarios in this game. It's really annoying. It's really frustrating. It's not enjoyable. Collector 2 is actually pretty good. Nebula is super swingy, so it might be the easiest scenario you've ever played, and it might be the hardest scenario you ever played. Who knows? You can't really control it. It's just luck at that point. And then Ronan is infamous for being super difficult. He is very difficult. I think he's the second, maybe third hardest villain in the game, probably second, behind Venom Goblin. But he's just an unfair hard, where he just sometimes swings for like 17 with piercing and overkill, and like you're just going to lose. Like there's just no way around that. So that's one of the more frustrating things with Ronan out there. So that's if you wanted to buy things in order. The last thing I want to take a look at is if you're just looking for specific cards. The next thing we're going to cover is probably one of the hardest things to cover. So here's the thing. Almost every single hero pack has cards worth getting. I know people are going to see what I'm about to say and go, D20, you're forgetting about XYZ cards. And you're 100% right. I am, because I do believe every single hero pack, generally speaking, has a card or two worth getting. And also there's different favorites for a lot of people. So I don't like the protection aspect as much as other people, but I like aggression more than other people do. Right? So it kind of depends on what you're into and what you're looking for. The common question I get if people don't want to buy whole cycles is, I just want to get certain cards to make my overall deck building better. What should I look at? And not looking at like big box expansions, right? Just looking at like hero packs. So here's my super rough recommendation of cards I use a lot. I still think to this day, Wasp is the best hero pack you can buy for general cards. And the reason, and also I just like Wasp a lot, like just FYI. But the reason being is Surprise Attack is a really good card when you get change form heroes. These are the cards like where Vision can change form, Shadowcat can change form by flipping another card, Spectrum can change form. And this isn't just, and it's also, going from alter ego to hero, but also when you get Ant-Man and Wasp, right? And you go from big Ant-Man to little Ant-Man, or big Wasp to little Wasp. Those are also changing forms, so you can do a lot of interesting things there. Boot Camp is a card I really enjoy, where you control each ally gets +1 attack. Again, I'm a big aggression guy, so. But that's not even the reason they get this pack. The reason they get this pack are because of the basic cards. The basic cards in this pack are some of the best, in my opinion. Ironheart is a basic ally. 2/1/1/2 stat line. After you play Ironheart from your hand, draw one card. Phenomenal card to play. Absolutely phenomenal. Especially early on, is going to be a card you play a lot. Miles Morales Spider-Man basic card. Incredibly strong card. It's a 3/1/2/3 stat line. But after you play Spider-Man from your hand, choose a thwart or attack, and Spider-Man gets +2 until the end of the phase. So if there's ways to ready up, Spider-Man's stupidly strong. Incredibly strong card. Queen Carrier is a really good Avenger-based support, which is a 3-cost support. You can exhaust to generate a resource. This is one of the first, I think it's the first card that we see that's a basic card to just generate resources. Jeez, I can't speak to that. The most important card, though, in here is the Power in All of Us. There's long discussion videos about this. This is something we can discuss over on twitch.tv/D20 Woodworking if you want to talk about it. But the Power in All of Us may have broken this game slightly. If you build around this card, which basically all it says is you double the number of resources this card generates when paying for basic gray cards, a lot of things become broken. And the reason being is because basic cards, in my opinion, a lot of them are really strong, but they're a little expensive. So now if you have all your doubles in there, so 1, 2, 3 doubles, plus 2 more doubles essentially for gray cards, all these cards become a lot cheaper now, or at least more manageable, right? Avengers Mansion, which lets you draw a card, is a 4-cost card. You pop in 2 of these, right? You're done. Queen Carrier is a 3-cost card. You use one of these, another resource. It's already paid off, right? It's just, It's a very, very, very strong card in general. Now, people still argue if it actually broke the game or not. And again, we can get to that on a live stream. But regardless, I think everyone would agree, generally speaking, it's a good card. And there's just a lot of good cards in this hero pack. So if you're just looking for a hero pack and you have only the core box of the Avengers, this is what I would get. This is the first hero pack I would get. On top of that, this is in no particular order now. I would also get Steve Rogers, Captain America hero pack. Now, as of right now, this is quote unquote out of print. I don't think it's staying out of print. I know a lot of people are worried about that. I think it will come back eventually. Don't worry too much. Squirrel Girl's a really good leadership ally. Hawkeye's a really good leadership ally. All that stuff is really good. Avengers Tower's a really good card. Mockingbird you already have. But there's just some good cards in here. It's a good leadership build deck, or a leadership, like a leadership based deck that you can build out here. Make the Call, really good card to pay for allies in your discard pile. Strength in Numbers is a really good card for ally swarm decks, where basically you exhaust the amount of allies you control to draw one card for each ally exhausted this way, right? Just good cards for any leadership based deck. Kamala Khan, this is Miss Marvel, has Lockjaw, which I mentioned before, but also has Endurance. Endurance is a basic card. It gives you 3 extra hit points. Just in case you're unfamiliar with the rules, when you play this card, if you have 10 hit points on your hero, you would now have 13 as your cap. Now, let's say at the time of playing this, you had 5 hit points left out of your 10. You put this on, you would have a max of 13, but your current one would go up to 8. Right? I know a lot of people kind of get weirded out by that rule, or like, how does it work? You would get up to 8 hit points then from the original 5, right? So it adds 3 hit points, not only from what you currently are, but also what your max is. But anyway, really good card. I play a lot. Then you have Thor, which I really like for aggression cards. Mean Swing is a really good card I use a lot for aggression. What was the other one I was looking at here? Hall of Heroes isn't bad. Oh, Yarnborn. Yarnborn's a really good aggression card. So Mean Swing basically says that after your hero makes a basic attack, exhaust a weapon upgrade on your hero gets +3 for that attack. Yarnborn, it's a restricted weapon, so you can only have 2 of them on the table. After your hero attacks an enemy, spend a fist resource and deal 2 damage to an enemy. This is a 1-cost upgrade. Really good card. Space Fan, Under Surveillance. Incredibly good card. I use it all the time for Justice. It's a 2-cost upgrade attached to the main scheme, max 1 per scheme. Increase the target threat value by 4. So if to pop the main scheme is like 8 threat, so once 8 threat is put in the main scheme, it goes to the next one, or you lose. Now it'd be 12 instead. It doesn't multiply based on player count, so it's really good in solo, and it's less good in 4-player games, and it's okay in the rest of it. But generally speaking, good cards. Doctor Strange. I might not like Doctor Strange, but he has really good cards in his deck. So, for example, Iron Fist is one of the best protection allies you can get early on. It's a 4-cost ally, 1/2/3 stat line. It comes with 2 mystic counters. Basically, when Iron Fist attacks an enemy, remove a mystic counter from him and to stun the enemy and deal 1 damage to it. Also, it's a response. So you attack first, deal 2 damage, and then you respond to it. So just FYI to learn timing sequences. Momentum Shift, really good 2-cost event. Heal 2 damage from your hero and deal 2 damage to an enemy. Strong card. Night Nurse, really good card. 1-cost support. She comes in with 3 medical counters. Exhaust the Night Nurse and remove 1 medical counter from her. You heal 1 damage from your hero and you discard 1 status effect. So if you're stunned or confused, you just get rid of that status effect. Good cards overall. Skill Strike is also a good card. When you make a basic attack, you get +2 for that attack. Sorcerer Supreme is if you're playing a lot of mystics, like, again, Strange or Scarlet Witch. You get a +1 hand size while in hero form. I'm also missing, I think Death Focus was in this one. I can't remember which one Death Focus is in, but that's another good card to get if you're playing mystics. Or if you're playing superpower heroes. I should have added that too. I can look in a second where that is. Then we have, this is Wanda's cards for Scarlet Witch. Crisis Averted is a good event card, 3-cost event. You remove 6 threat from a scheme. If you paid using a mental, you ignore crisis icons. I'm not going to go over the rules of that, but strong amount. Multitasking is a 1-cost event. Remove 2 threat from a scheme. If you pay for this card using a mental resource, remove 2 from a different one. Really good card. Again, a card I use all the time. Turn the Tide is an incredibly good card with Miss Marvel. After your hero thwarts and removes the last threat from the scheme, play this card to deal 3 damage to an enemy. Can be really strong. Spiritual Meditation, really good mystic card overall. Again, just strong cards there. Now, really quick, I just want to show you, excuse me, an example of 2 cards that work really well together that come in 2 different hero packs. So, for example, Nova has Hone Technique. 3 costs, aggression upgrade, requires 2 mental resources. You can only have 1 per player. So when you play an aggression attack event, if you paid for it using a mental resource, then increase the amount of damage that event deals by its printed cost. Well, what is that, right? What does that mean, D20? So let's say you got also the Star-Lord Hero Pack, which comes with Dive Bomb. It's a 4-cost card, and you can only play if you have Aerial, but it does 7 damage to an enemy and then 1 damage to each other enemy. Well, if you had Hone Technique already on the table, and you paid for Dive Bomb using a mental and 3 other random resources, it doesn't just do 7 damage on one enemy and 1 on everything else. It now does 11 damage on one enemy and 5 on everything else, right? 8, 9, 10, 11. Yeah, I'm counting right. So cards like that, if you're looking for certain combo cards, are really strong to look at. It's an incredibly good card. There's other ways to boost Dive Bomb to make it stupidly strong. But anyway, I just wanted to show that off really fast. The last card to really point out where it's a really good card to have overall for your deck building is Death Focus. So basically 1 cost upgrade, basic card, exhaust Death Focus to reduce the resource cost of the next superpower card you play by this turn by 1. A lot of heroes have superpower cards, not every hero, but a lot do. The biggest issue with this card is you used to only be able to get in the Guardians Most Wanted box, and I know I just told you to like not get that till the end. Well, now it's also available in the Magneto Hero Pack, so it might be worth getting the Magneto Hero Pack just for this card because, again, same exact, just different picture, right? But same exact wording on the card, except it also is labeled protection on the bottom. Don't worry about that typo they made. But anyway, it's also a really good card to have and probably chase down as well. Very strong basic card. Will help you out a ton. So I know this video didn't cover everything you probably wanted, but hopefully it gives you a rough idea. Now, there's other ways to buy things as well. Some people just like buying only the heroes that they enjoy, and that's it. And that's a fine way to do things. If you're just more into the thematics of the game and you're just like, hey, I just want to feel like I'm Gamora or Nova or something or Ironheart, then just buy the hero packs that you're interested in. Are they weaker? Yeah, they're going to be weaker, but who cares if you're just trying to have fun? Like, you're still going to have fun. You can still do well with those pre-con decks. They're not great, but they're not terrible as well. Or some people go, hey, I really like the core box heroes. I just want more villains. So I'm going to get all the scenario packs and whatnot. And that's absolutely a way you could do things as well. One last thing I'll mention, because people ask this a lot with scenario packs, what ones should they get? What should they avoid? So I'm just going to go in order of what I would, in order of release and what I think about them really quick. So, for example, the Green Goblin scenario pack, I think is a really good scenario pack. We already touched on that. It's one of my favorites. Wrecking Crew, I'd probably save for the very end. Kang, I save for the end because I'm a solo player. And then the only other one we really have to talk about is the Hood, which comes in with Standard 2 and Expert 2. I wouldn't worry about it too much off, right away. I would worry about it later on. The scenario itself is fine, but it's nothing to like write home about. But yeah, so don't worry about that too much. And then lastly is Mojo Mania, which we already talked about. You could say Deadpool is a scenario pack too, kind of, because it's a 5th aspect in the Deadpool pack. I just don't think that 5th aspect is very good. So I wouldn't, if you like Deadpool, get it for Deadpool. Don't get it because it has a 5th aspect. The 5th aspect is not that great. If as you get more into Marvel Champions, you'll probably find ways to enjoy it, but I wouldn't worry about it like right away or anything like that. And that's all the scenario packs they have right now, I believe. So my rough order would be probably Green Goblin, and then Mojo, and then the Hood, then Kang, and then Wrecking Crew. Or maybe Wrecking Crew, then Kang. I don't know. They could go either way. So anyway, hopefully this video was enjoyable. Hopefully it helps you out with your buying decisions. If you haven't yet, join the Discord down below. Come hang out, come talk about what you're getting, what your thoughts are, what, maybe you're need help like finding good deals. We're always putting out good deals. We do that on the e-newsletter as well. The link for that's down below. There's a lot of links down below. Just go click on all of them and go see what interests you. But anyway, hopefully you like this video. I appreciate you all watching, and I will see you all next time.